Hello, and welcome to your new favorite weekly series from Progress Virginia. This is the Richmond Recap, and I'm your host, Kimberly Nario. Now, let's get into these updates. This week saw a mass movement of progressive issues in both the House and Senate, and we here at Progress Virginia cannot be more excited. Let's start with criminal justice reform. In the Senate bill to finally get rid of mandatory minimums, SB 1443, is moving forward to finance this week. The Senate bill to abolish the death penalty, SB 1165, is on the floor. Yes, y'all, we are all about it. The Commonwealth will become more just, and we couldn't be happier. Over in the House bills to abolish mandatory minimums and the death penalty, HB 2331 and HB 2263, both from Delegate Mullen, are on the docket in committee today. And just like that, mandatory minimums are about to be a thing of the past, much like Ivanka and Jared's social life. Senator Lucas's bill to create a statewide system for collecting data on pretrial incarceration and give us a better understanding of what's happening in our criminal justice system, SB 1391 passed committee and is headed to finance. This would be the first step towards reform. Read, this would be the first step in undoing the harm that having a racist criminal justice system has inflicted on our communities. Just so we're clear. More good news. The bill that deals with racial and ethnic impact statements for criminal justice legislation, HB 1990, is on the House floor. Delegate Bourne's bill to end qualified immunity, HB 2045, is being heard today in House Court of Justice Civil Subcommittee, sending good vibes that this bill will advance, and quickly. And there were several bills up on marijuana legalization and automatic expungement this week. The Senate is still debating different approaches to automatically expunging some criminal convictions. Senator Lucas and Senator Serval take different approaches, which will be discussed next week in the Judiciary Committee. The omnibus marijuana legalization bill that also brings up automatic expungement of misdemeanor records related to marijuana charges, SB 1406, passed committee and was assigned to the Judiciary Subcommittee on Expungement. The House legalization bill, HB 2321, along with the automatic expungement bills, are headed towards a House Appropriations Subcommittee to hash out the details. See what I did there? Expungement is necessary. It's fair, it's just. Come on, y'all. Puff, puff, pass those criminal records into the garbage can because legalization must happen justly. Let's talk about constitutional amendments that were debated this week. The House and Senate will both vote on potential constitutional amendments next week, but they've started taking public testimony. As a reminder, to amend Virginia's Constitution, a bill has to pass 2 sessions of the General Assembly with an election in between, and then goes on to ballot for voters to decide. Since we have an election this November, legislators are considering new constitutional amendments to move into the 2-year process. First up, marriage equality. The Supreme Court has said love is love, but Virginia's Constitution still has discriminatory language we've got to get rid of, which is just what HJ 539 would do. How did we get to 2021 and still have this homophobic garbage to deal with? No, thank you. There's also a proposal to guarantee the fundamental right of marriage to all, regardless of sex or gender, HJ 582. We need these to pass like yesterday because Virginia is for lovers, all lovers. Also on deck for constitutional amendments this year is rights restoration. Virginia is one of only a few states to permanently bar people who have been convicted of a felony from voting. HJ 555 is the Rights Restoration Amendment from Delegate Herring. We've said it before, we'll say it again. The criminal justice system is unfair and racist. So, in a world where the most disenfranchised voters are Black and brown, rights restoration needs to happen. Now let's take a look at workers' rights. Delegate Price's Domestic Workers' Bill of Rights, which would provide protections for over 60,000 domestic workers in the Commonwealth, HB 1864, is set to pass the floor today. The bill would cover domestic workers under employment protection laws and the Virginia Workers' Compensation Act, and also prohibit discrimination in employment. With insurrections, a pandemic, and just general bad vibes, no one should have to worry about discrimination in the workplace or anywhere, really. Let's dive into the paid family and medical leave. HB 2016, the bill from Delegate Ayala, would ensure workers can take paid time off when they or a family member needs care. A similar bill, SB 1330, failed to gain traction in the Senate. However, the House bill passed full committee and is now headed to House Appropriations. Let's hope that when we move to crossover, the Senate knows what to do. Pass it. The bill to remove the farm worker exemption from minimum wage, HB 1786, passed its committee. This bill is much needed because while some of us are fighting to increase minimum wage, not all of us get it to begin with. Lastly, we have the bill to allow individuals to still receive unemployment benefits if they or a family member have COVID-19, or if their workplace is not adhering to COVID-19 safety guidelines. Delegate Trans HB 2037 thankfully passed full committee. If you're a business that isn't taking every precaution to protect your employees, then what are you doing? Besides risking the health of who knows how many people, risking your business's reputation, and just being downright cruel. Please, get out of here with that nonsense. Moving on to immigrant rights. The bill to allow undocumented immigrants to apply for pedestrian IDs through the DMV, HB 2138, passed the House this week and is now in the Senate Transportation Committee. And the Driver Privilege Card Privacy Language Bill, HB 2163, passed committee and is being heard by the House Appropriations Committee today. As a daughter of immigrants and a big fan of progressive policy, I personally love to see it. This week, we also saw movement on the healthcare and reproductive rights front. A bill to expedite the COVID-19 vaccine distribution by allowing more healthcare providers and volunteers to administer vaccines, Delegate Bagby's HB 2333, as well as a bill that would allow people with Medicaid insurance to receive a year's worth of birth control, Senator Boysko's SB 1227, both passed their respective chambers. HB 2333 is already in committee in the Senate. Vaccines, birth control, what is this, second Christmas? In even more amazing news, Delegate Aird's HJ 537, which declares racism a public health crisis, passed the House and moved on to the Senate Committee on Rules. And if you haven't heard, the bills to remove the prohibition on abortion coverage in the state health insurance exchange passed both the House and Senate this week. I don't think I have to explain what great news that is, but I will. This is a much needed step in giving people of the Commonwealth the right to choose. Reproductive justice isn't justice if it's not for all of us. More good news on the housing rights front in the House General Laws Committee. The Residential Landlord and Tenant Act, which makes it difficult for landlords to kick people out of their homes, HB 1889, is expected to pass the floor today. The bill requires a 14-day notice before an eviction filing and also requires landlords to offer payment plans to get tenants back on track. It's basically a bill to get landlords to do the right thing. Over in higher education, looks like things may finally become more accessible. A bill to allow immigrants to qualify for state-funded financial aid programs, Delegate Lopez's HB 2123, passed appropriations and is now on the floor. Meanwhile, G3, the Get Skilled, Get a Job, Give Back program, HB 2204 from Speaker Fillercorn, passed the House floor, and Delegate Aird's bill to prohibit colleges and universities from asking a student's criminal history, HB 1930, also passed the House floor. People make mistakes, and most of the time, it's none of our business. Now for voting rights in the Senate Privileges and Elections Committee. Senator McClellan's bill to put protections from the Federal Voting Rights Act into Virginia Code, SB 1395, is headed to finance, while the bill HB 1890 passed its full committee and is on the House floor. The bills would provide stronger protections for Black, Indigenous, people of color communities, and language minorities by requiring localities to advertise voting changes in advance and strengthening Virginia's laws against voter intimidation. Unfortunately, Senator Eben and Senator Lucas's National Popular Vote Bill, SB 1101, which would help guarantee that the presidency goes to the national popular vote winner, was stricken at the request of the patron. Sad to see this one go, because if you weren't aware, the Electoral College is flawed. Not only is it rooted in racism, but it obviously doesn't always reflect what the voters want. Do y'all remember 2016? The bill to require that absentee ballots are counted prior to Election Day, SB 1246 from Senator Deeds, is on the Senate floor. So you mean the votes are just sitting there way before Election Day and can get counted before Election Day? That just sounds like good time management to me. More good news, Senator Favola's bill to eliminate the need for a witness signature on an absentee ballot, SB 1097, passed the Senate floor. So now no one has to hit up their neighbor for a cup of sugar or an unnecessary signature. For my nature buffs, or really anyone who cares about protecting our environment, so hopefully all of you, I have some good news and some bad news. The bad news is that the bill that deals with over-earnings from utility companies, looking at you, Dominion, SB 1292, died. In case you haven't seen our many Instagram posts or TikToks about this, Dominion has been overcharging us for years. Currently, they're only required to give back 70% of what they overcharge us. And at least for the time being, that won't change. They'll still keep our money, and I'll still keep my rage. But the good news is that the bill that sunsets the coal tax credit, HB 1899, passed committee. Essentially, this bill does away with the incentives that corporations get for relying on coal. The future is clean energy, but clean money sounds good too. And a little update on the bills that require power companies to give a schedule of power plant closures to impacted communities, workers, and state agencies when those plans are made, SB 1247 and HB 1834. The Senate bill was recommended by Senate Labor and Commerce Subcommittee on Energy and will be heard in the full committee next week. And the House bill will pass today. This is important because these closures affect Black and Brown communities and lower income families at disproportionate rates. Now, for our heroes and zeros. Our heroes for the week are the healthcare workers working overtime to get us vaccinated. We would not make it without you. Thank you. Seriously, thanks. And our zero for the week that you may recognize as the hero from our first episode is none other than Al Gore's internet. With all of the tech failures in the General Assembly this week, Al Gore's internet proved to be similar to his bid for the presidency, just not quite strong enough. Full disclosure, folks, a little over 20 years ago, I did in fact vote for Al Gore in the Nickelodeon Kids vote. So if there's anything I've learned since then, it's how to deal with white men who disappoint me. A quick shout out to Empower RVA teams. They're a student-led peer facilitation program from the YWCA that works to prevent teen dating and sexual violence through education and empowerment. We see the work y'all are doing, and we are proud and honored to be in community with you. Thanks for joining us, Richmond Recap Royalty. Follow us here on Facebook and on Instagram, Twitter, and of course, TikTok. We hope to see you next week because, hey, it's nice to have your mug around.